Part 1, 1994, is directed by Lee Janayak, I think, and it's based off of a story. It's based off of a series of the same name by R.L. Stine. This movie, as you may have guessed from the title, is part 1 in a trilogy of Fear Street movies that are also going to be taking place in different time periods. As you also may have guessed from the title, this one takes place in 1994. You have 2 other parts that are happening. One is Fear Street Part 2, 1978, which I believe just came out this past Friday. I will have a review for that one up on Sunday. The story here revolves around a group of teenagers in Shadyside, Ohio, who all of a sudden have to deal with a host of evil beings and sometimes undead beings who are hunting them and trying to kill them. This is all connected to a series of really brutal murders that have plagued their town for over a century. I feel like this movie is absolutely perfect for the demographic that it's for. A lot of times in movies, that's what you're searching for. You're searching for a movie that's gonna perfectly please its target audience. Target audience in this case being horror movie fans, or more specifically fans of slasher movies. This is a teenage slasher movie that actually is a lot more adult than you would think it is. When it comes to the slasher stuff that happens within this movie, I feel like most people are going to be satisfied, and also most people are gonna feel like this is a throwback. I mean, okay, it does take place in the 90s, so you're gonna have like certain things that pop up in this movie that make you feel like the 90s. You're gonna have some objects, you know, a Walkman here or there. You're gonna have some clothes. But it also feels like it could have easily just been a modern day movie and it wouldn't have changed that much. To recap, it's a throwback that takes place in 1994 that also feels like a 2021 type production, if that makes sense. If we're gonna shout out things to like about this movie, I also like the fact that it's a lot more adult and bloody and gory than even I was expecting going in. I also like the fact that the longer the movie goes on, the stakes get higher. You know, sometimes in horror movies, you kind of just feel like the characters are a little bit invincible. Even if they're in danger, you feel like most of the principal characters are gonna be okay, like they're gonna survive any type of situation. It's not necessarily the case in this movie. As the stakes get higher, you feel like, especially going into the 3rd act, that anything can happen, and anything can happen to any of these characters. And that feeling of danger, that tension was very apparent, especially in the 3rd act, and I do love the fact that this movie decided to go for it like that. There are some really enjoyable side characters in this movie. My 3 favorite characters have to be Josh, Kate, and Simon. There's characters that are easier to root for, and I would also say that when it comes to the story of this movie, I appreciate the fact that it's part of something bigger. We've all watched horror movies where there's like gigantic exposition scenes where they have to explain the threat or the evil that's hunting everybody, and for sure, this movie does have a couple of those scenes. I like the fact that it feels like it's part of a larger mythology, and I love the fact that you get to explore this mythology in 2 other movies. I feel like it's a story that's going to expand and get bigger and bigger, and you're gonna be able to discover more things as you move forward through this trilogy. So I love that aspect of the storytelling, and I just feel like everything in this movie kind of coalesced and combined and came together, and it's very well paced. That's something else I want to give a shout out to the director for. The movie is paced a lot better than you would think it is. Like, there's a couple of moments, character moments, whatever, but for the most part, the plot is almost always progressing forward. Unfortunately, because it is a slasher movie and because it is a throwback slasher movie, there are going to be aspects of this movie that are going to rub people the wrong way, because we have to deal with a lot of horror movie cliches. So many cliches and tropes associated with this genre, and you do see a lot of them in this movie. Some of them are gonna make your eyes roll. There's gonna be a lot of dumb horror movie characters making dumb horror movie decisions. It does create, you know, an imbalance in logic that sometimes happens in horror movies, where it feels like stuff is intentionally being made to happen in a stupid way just so that we can get the story to where it needs to get to. You know what? That's whatever. You can kind of live with that. I think my bigger issue with this film is how it handles its main characters. The main character in this movie is a character named Dina, and unfortunately, Dina is not really a likable protagonist. She has almost no redeemable qualities, and she's very unlikable when you look at her actions and her attitude throughout most of the runtime. But you know what? That's okay. Even if you have a horror movie, or really any movie where the main character is not that likable, that's okay, because at least there might be something else interesting or compelling about them, or the other characters can kind of make up for the lack of interest in the main character. Her whole existence in this movie is defined by this specific relationship that she has with this other girl. The reason why I don't like this is because the relationship itself, the way that it's portrayed, feels very toxic and very obtrusive, and it just doesn't feel like the type of relationship that they were trying to cultivate on screen. The teenage angst stuff you can kind of deal with, like you can kind of get over that because that's a thing that you're gonna see in a lot of teen slasher movies. But specifically the main character and the way that her relationship with this other girl was portrayed, it rubbed me the wrong way, and I didn't like it, and I didn't like rooting for them, and I hated almost every moment that they were on screen and we had to deal with their bullshit. As far as like a throwback slasher movie inspired by R.L. Stine, I thought that this movie could have been a lot worse, and in fact, I actually had a lot of fun with it. Fear Street Part 1, 1994 was actually a pretty solid ass slasher movie. I'm gonna put this one in the Silver Age for Man of Steel. Tell me like what's the scariest thing that's ever happened to you in your life? Give me that in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and as always, if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.